Hello, hello, YouTube. Welcome to the Clarity Hotline. Welcome to the Clarity Hotline, clutter free flat. I was so sure I was going to get it. Welcome to the Clarity Hotline, clutter free family. I would love it if you guys tried saying that 10 times fast. 'Cause I should be saying it 10 times fast to practice. Um, at least 5 times fast, right? Hello, welcome. Thanks for coming on live. I got Instagram and YouTube, so don't mind my eyes going kind of everywhere. Just to make sure I'm checking on the chat, and then I also have my notes up because we've got a couple questions we're going to ask today, or answer today. And where are my notes? I just did a Chrome update, so everything is kind of reloading. I know it's dangerous to do an update right before you go live. So leave it to me to do stuff like that. I just wanted to make sure like we had optimal connectivity on our devices because the last few weeks have been tricky with connection. And so I just want to make sure we don't lose connection and Wi-Fi is strong and all that. So here's where we're at. This is what we're doing. I'll just read the question. So we're actually going to go to a question. We're going to go back in time and answer a question that Jessica asked a couple weeks ago. How are you balancing work and homeschooling? And then, hi, thanks for coming on live. And then we're going to answer a new question from Carolyn. How are you liking homeschool now that you've been doing it for a few weeks? Are you still going that path with your son? So I'm going to answer all that, but I have a couple hot topics to cover first. So we're going to also do the hot topics. I'm just curious. I just did a quick scroll on Instagram and I was like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? I feel like I've been under a rock. And so I had to educate myself on the times. But anyway, let's ground down, settle in and breathe to arrive. Breathe to be here right now, wherever that is for you, whatever you're coming from. That's what we're doing a detachment from. We're pretty much breathing to enter the space that we're in and enter our bodies and feel into the mind-body connection where our awareness is, our awareness lives, our clarity is found. And so, just want to breathe and center. I definitely prefer a breath, a big inhale and a big exhale. I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. Big inhale and a big exhale. I like to make my inhale shorter than my exhale. And the purpose of that is, the vagus nerve. I could go into all the science, but basically just it's the best anxiety relieving breath. So if you've got any anxiety from the day, tension built up, and for me, it's 12 noon Pacific time. So depending on what time of day it is for you, it could be, a lot to try to settle down and calm. I'm sure on my same coast, people are starting their lunch hour. So it could be like, oh, I needed this break. Let me just totally unplug from devices. I get it. If you're not on live with me because you are taking that kind of a break, more power to you. Good for you. And then just catch the replay. Okay. So that's the good part about live streaming, and then also just having it on the feed so that it, is always there. Okay, so here's the hot topic. I want to get your guys' feedback on what we think about the great purge, the social media purge. Instagram in particular did a great purge, I guess, a couple days ago, and they are really doing away with all the bots and the fake accounts. And so, I guess Kim K lost like 7 million subscribers or followers on Instagram. And who knows if YouTube's doing. I didn't lose any followers, so I don't think it's happening. I lost followers on Instagram. Like maybe a couple hundred I lost. And I think it's great, first of all, like that there is a purge. It's a great spring cleaning. Social media has to have some spring cleaning too. Take some accountability for all the things that people start these new accounts and they never really go into them. I think if you could tell that it's a bot, it's great that you could delete that account and just be done with it. And whatever. Nobody cares. I think the only time it kind of matters is if they're deleting accounts that were started by well-intentioned people. They wanted their name, the Instagram handle. They wanted it to to be safeguarded in their care that they would have access to use later. Like, let's say they can't really run the account right now. Um, you know, that they could have it for later. It's like when you buy domains. I don't know. It was a big thing in the early 2000s to like buy domain names for businesses that weren't started yet, or ideas that you had. You'd buy the domain, the .com, and it was a great way to kind of like safeguard your idea in the way that you wanted to, you know, start a business. And so I have a few, trust me, I have a few that are either pointing to another website of mine because it makes sense. But then I also have like some dormant parked domains that are like ideas yet to generate. I still need to like nurture those ideas, and it's just not the right time. But they're still very much alive. Honestly, if I bought a domain and I just could not either see it fitting into my life anymore, I got rid of it. I stopped paying for it. Don't pay for a domain you're just really not seeing fit into your life anymore or into your business plans, your goals in life. Like, just don't keep it. Anyway, so if you had an account and it was dormant and you weren't using it, I wonder if they deleted those accounts too. I don't know. On Instagram. But I think it's a good thing that they're doing the purge because one, what it's all vanity metrics anyway. So what does it really matter? The number at all, really? When you have a solid business idea, it doesn't matter the number of followers you have, subscribers on YouTube, because it's really the engaged audience you care about, the people that are here for you, their answer. You're getting them on your email list, is really what I want to say. The end result is you get them on your email list and you're talking and nurturing, your list with just top quality value. And then when it comes time that they want to work with you, the opportunity is there to work with you, or at least get on a wait list and save, save your spot for working with you later. That's how I've run my business. I've always had an email list since I started. And so it's just about starting an email list, just keep growing that list, nurture on the back end, something that you own, not necessarily subscribers or followers. You don't own these social media platforms. And so you want to get them off the platform and into your email. So even in DMs, you'll see people, if they're using DM strategy, they're trying to get you into email. So for you to give up your email address so that you can start to have an exchange off of the app, because that's where most deals are made. When they're off the app and they're, hearing from you on a weekly basis, and they know and they're aware of your services and the products that you have for sale, and they know what your offer is and how what the promise is behind your offers and how it can help them achieve their goals, and basically what are the results that you offer that they want, right? And so this is all happening in the back end. This is all happening in the back end on email. And so I think it just shows us that regardless of what Instagram and YouTube, TikTok, anybody's doing, LinkedIn, however they're purging and whatever the criteria for purging is, you want to just be pulling people into an asset that you own. And because we don't own these social media platforms. And I mean, honestly, like when TikTok was being threatened to be banned until we got an American buyer, and notice how the deadline for that kept moving, of course, right? Because it's too big to fail, that kind of a thing for TikTok, that it was like, okay, we're gonna wait until there's an American buyer, and then hopefully that fixes the scare behind our American data going, to other countries that we don't have control over. And, what they do with it, we don't know. So, I don't know the back end and how that's all working out. If anybody does, chime in. If TikTok is now officially switched over as far as like where the data is being collected and stored and housed and who has access to it. Um, is it all on American soil now? Who knows? I guess that still shows kind of the point of which you want to bring your business off of the app and make sure that you're forming community elsewhere, just in case, you know, a social media platform is banned or it shuts down, which we've seen happen, right? And people panic when their business is completely on these platforms, when they're completely hinged on these platforms being up and running and working and not locking you out of your account. It really does matter that they're working without a hitch for your business. I would say that is problematic because one day it could not be working, right? And one day it could be taken down by the government or taken down by the founder. Who knows? We just really don't know. It's out of our hands. But what we can kind of pull close to our chest is our email list and nurturing that. So always have a way to pull people onto your list. Anyway, I talk all about that with my clients. This is an important part of business building. Step one, kind of a thing, is to start to nurture off of these apps. But at least the idea, right? You want to, if you have a small email list, it's still a strong asset. If you have few followers on social media, it's still a strong asset as long as you're using that asset to funnel into something that you can own, which is your email list. So it's not an asset unless you own it. Oh, okay, so let's get into our questions. Okay, so Carolyn's question is, how are you liking homeschool now that you've been doing it for a few weeks? And do you still choose it for your son? Is it still the path that you're on for your son? And I would say yes, at least for one of my sons. So the kindergartner I took out for the purposes of homeschooling, I'm still going to keep him out. My youngest, who's entering TK, I don't mind him going into TK, which gives me a little bit more space to make this work and I guess plot and plan my path, with how I'm going to make it happen with both homeschooling and working full time. I really work I build out my schedule as far as non-negotiables go, and then for my business and personal, and then I just kind of work around that. And then there's starting to become pretty firm non-negotiables when it comes to his homeschooling. And so that is all very clear. And then I can start to, fill in the pockets of time with other things. And so that's kind of how it is right now. I would say having a little bit more space, maybe some distance from having my two boys here, that they both are at different levels, and just getting my own bearings since I'm not in my own space, then I think that's going to be better for us. Because in the long run, I think I do want to homeschool. That is something that is being more important, I guess, just more. I'm finding more proof as to like why I chose it and the benefits of it. One objection I get a lot is the socialization. It's kind of like the only thing that people, other than how are you filling your time and how do you make time for yourself? The only thing I'm getting is the kids aren't socializing. And how do you deal with socialization? I think that's the biggest one that I'm hearing as the objection for homeschool, because nobody wants their kid to be weird or the outcast. But there's like homeschooling communities that are so big that there's not a chance for that. If you are putting your kid in environments where they're meeting new people, that's socialization, regardless of the age. Granted, there are plenty of opportunities to be with your peers. There are learning centers, parks, collective meetups, all the groups that are available. And if you just look around your neighborhood or do a Google search, you'll find that you could join these groups and meet up with them at parks or field trips and things like that. Even if you're with a homeschool charter, like and you have a school attached to your homeschool. Not everybody does. Some people are going their own path and they just work with their particular state and they make sure they're legally, I guess, legally informing the government that they're homeschooling, and that's why their kid's not enrolled in a school that they can see the matriculation of that school. I don't know how that all behind the scenes works, especially with private schools, but they're not enrolled in kind of a brick and mortar. Um, there are some states that require you to let them know and inform them of the fact that they're with you at home. And so, anyway, if you're with like a charter school and you're homeschooling through that school, they have a lot of programs too, a lot of ability to meet in person and have your kids socialize. And what I've noticed in us getting out there and socializing is that the son who I'm intending to continue to homeschool, he's got no problem speaking up and saying hi, and neither do some of the friends that he meets, and they have no problem engaging. I mean, we're talking 5-year-olds. What is in the way of them engaging? Nothing, except social stigma if that was taught to them. But if it wasn't taught to them and everyone's accepted and we embrace all people and everybody's good and just go have fun, go play, but be considerate of each other, right? If the other person says stop, you stop. That kind of stuff. That is all natural, right? And it's like these you see a kid on the playground and you catch eyes and it's like, "You wanna play? Okay, let's play." And that's just the natural inclination that I'm seeing from him, and so he's naturally that way. And then my other son's really shy. He's not probably gonna go up to the other kid, but they've both been in school, so they've had socialization. I know that when he gets comfortable, my youngest, he does break out of his shyness, and he's fun, right? He'll have fun and play and have a good old time. I think it's easier for him to like if it's a boy, another boy, for him to like, be chummy and immediately gravitate. So it's like he's probably more into like the scooter and doing all that stuff. And then my other son is more into the imaginative play and stuff like that. And so they just find their group. And I think, as parents, we just don't want them to be outcasted or try to join a group of friends and then, them turn their nose up at them and make them feel like, they're weird. When, people are even Austin, Texas, they're like, we're fine being weird. Weird is not even a bad thing when you think about it. Weird is just different and we're all different. So is everybody weird? That's kind of silly just to kind of if we can go back in time to the fact that yeah, back in the day, 80s, probably 90s, weird was a problem and now it's just like no, everybody's weird. We've all got like quirks. We've all got our funny ways about us and that's what makes us unique and special and uh, I don't know, interesting to befriend. And so, I don't know. And then I think it's kind of like you got 2 camps with socialization. There's this idea of weird and not weird or cool and not cool, right? And you just want your kids to be on the side that has the most people because you don't want them to feel left out. But that is so backwards thinking because you just want them to find who gets them, right? You don't want them to just go with the herd because that's the cool crowd. Like you really genuinely want them to find peace within themselves, learn about themselves, know who they are, and like find joy in that and peace and comfort and excitement in who they are and what they get to pursue in life. You want that for them, right? Well, if that's what you want for them, then you want them to find whoever else wants to do that. And wherever their passions and their interests align and they meet people who also want those things and maybe who want the same things, somebody else who's into bugs, somebody else who's into fantasy or Star Wars or I mean, Legos, like whoever else is into those things, you want them to find their tribe, right? And so that's just how it is. It's just kind of like finding your people. And it's not necessarily going to be the cool crowd. And that doesn't matter when you find your people because that feels cool to find your people, right? And I think socialization is one thing, and then trying to have them just kind of fit into society is another. I think there's an important difference there to note, that when you say that you want your kids to be well socialized and things like that, recognize what you're saying, because socialization is just the ability to walk up to a stranger and talk and hold a conversation and have something, find something in common or come to terms on something, right? That's socializing. It's not necessarily just going with whoever's the loudest or whoever's the coolest or whatever that is. So what is socialization? So I like how Ainsley Arment, she's the author of Wild and Free, which is a book on like homeschooling and her her ethos and her philosophy around homeschooling and why she chose to homeschool her kids who are now, I think, graduates and done. And so she's now just kind of still in the community of homeschooling. And she started this community called Wild and Free, which I think also has some curriculum attached to it. But anyway, so she started Wild and Free and wrote a book about it. And it's this big community who they're not unschoolers. They're also not like charter schools necessarily, homeschoolers. They're just kind of their own um, cut from the mold, as far as wanting your kids to have a childhood, wanting your kids to find their own independence at their own pace and find what they're good at, find what brings them joy, what lights them up on their own terms while being a child, right? Not being forced into any type of um, adulthood too soon. I think that's really how I could sum up the way she looks at homeschooling. Well, anyway, she has a great quote in her book, and she says, "What good comes from our children being so socialized that their preferences and ambitions become indistinguishable?" So I thought that was really powerful because you have to examine why you'd want to put them in school. So all judgment aside from other people, what do you want for your kids? And chances are, depending on how you answer that, homeschooling is the solution, right? To them having what you want for them. Because I want so many things for my kids. And what I'm able to see that while they're home with me, I am able to just monitor things and I'm able to nurture a bond between the siblings. Which, is hard because siblings fight but I just think that, you are in a house all day with each other, that there are going to be kind of moments that they bug you and it's annoying to be around them and you wish they would just leave. And so you guys fight because you're just in each other's space too much. That's going to happen. But then there's also kind of the foundation of relationship. Like, I know you're my family and I love you. And at the end of the day, we're going to be here for each other and love each other. Same thing with mom and dad, right? And the healthy environment, the healthy home that represents is so crucial that I think I wasn't feeling that every single day because I was too tired. Like, I was tired after a long day, and be getting the kids home at a time when my day was ending and, in a way, just beginning with my kids. So it's my work day was ending, and then I was getting my kids, and that was kind of starting up. So depending on how your energy collided, not every day was I tired, but on days that I was tired, I found that depending on what their energy was when I picked them up from school, it was chaotic because it was a clash of desires. They want to be with mommy and daddy. They want to connect and bond and play and just let their hair down because they've been at school all day, unable to do all the things they wanted to do. And so it could be, erratic behavior meets like I'm trying to wind down. And then I also have to cook and clean and, get you ready for bed and and put you to bed and have bedtime routine and really obviously bond and connect and be energetic enough for you. When I saw that that was happening, I was like, okay, hold on, this has to switch. So I had lightened my load even more during the day so that I did have more energy for, when I picked them up. So that was also an important part of my day. It wasn't that they were getting the scraps of my day. I wanted them to get the best of me. So I had to adjust what was happening in my work day or just my personal life day. Because, on any given day, I could be doing both things for myself personally. I could be running errands. I could be going grocery shopping. I could be doing all these things for the house and then also working. So, depending on how I packed myself on a given day, meant that I either did or did not have energy for my kids later. And so, believe me, when I found that my energy was compromised from piling on too much during the day, I lightened my day. So the load of my day, how I saw fit my day to be, right? Whatever I had is my non-negotiables, whatever's on my schedule for work, whatever I put on my plate as far as handling housework and things like that, that was all having that had to be adjusted for, like, maybe some transition time, some downtime. So I was giving myself downtime before I picked up the kids so that I got my head right and just settled into myself again, right? And saw myself picking up my kids and envisioned us having a great evening together, them telling me how school was and us bonding and connecting, eating dinner together, and then cuddling, in bed and them falling asleep. And then me, getting to do whatever else I do to wind down my day. And then I go to bed, right? And I get a good night's sleep. That's kind of how intentional I started to become about it, because one thing about school I noticed was it's just because they're off in school doesn't mean that you're not paying attention to things that you need to do for them. You're still thinking about them constantly. You're still hoping things are okay. You're still getting updates from the teacher. And especially if they aren't ready, they aren't school aged, and everybody's different. Just because, the system says 5 years old is kindergarten doesn't mean they're school age, meaning doesn't mean they're ready for the environment of school, in a way that feels comfortable for them, feels appropriate for who they are and how they want to express themselves and how they want to be. I think it could get overwhelming for some kids. And I think more so probably for boys, it's a lot to put on them to make them sit still when they're told to sit still. Even though they're moving a lot, there's the body break, moving around and doing fun things to music. And then there is okay, come onto the carpet. Okay, come on go back to your desk. So there's movement between those spaces, but it's not movement of your body. It's not fresh air. So that is maybe 2.5 hours of just straight classroom time, being told where to go, what to do, and all that stuff. And if you're not wanting to do it, then yeah, you're going to ask for bathroom breaks. You're going to want to get up. You're going to be kicking your classmate because you're just like so stir crazy. And then there's so much information. It's constant talking from the instructor, the teacher, of rules, what to do, what we're going to do next. And no shade. I'm just saying this is how it is for a kid going into school all day. There's constant noise. And if it's not like, the teacher saying something and giving instruction and or leading some activity, then there is the noise from your classmates. So there's noise all around them talking and or them poking, prodding, right? Depending on who you're sitting by, or you're doing the poking and the prodding because you're bored. It's just an environment that, yeah, causes a lot of riffraff because kids haven't necessarily settled into themselves to know how to be, and then you're socializing them in that state. Um, and I just think, if that's what you call socialization, is there a way to do it in baby steps? Um, And I'm not even just talking about like the COVID generation, the kids that were born during COVID where there was really no socialization and it was just time home alone. I think, or home with, your who you were staying in. What was the phrase we used back then in 2020? Um, what did you call what did we call each other? Like we're staying in, and that was your roommate. And so that's who you so it was your family or your roommate, and that's who you stayed home with. I thought there was a term where like you guys were going to be trusted buddies to protect yourself if you went out to grocery shop or whatever, and wear a mask and not bring germs home to your roommate. Though you were called something. I thought that there was something. I know there is. But anyway, so that community that you stayed home, right? You stayed indoors during the pandemic. That that was kind of your socialization, but that's just normal, right? Back in the day when there were villages and you were just a house in a village of like 4 or 5 houses, and you guys all did stuff together, and it was a small close-knit community. That's all who you talked to and you know worked with and things like that, and that was very small and intimate. And then, yeah, I guess, it got smaller during the pandemic in just your household and your siblings. And then I guess it's smaller still because if you're homeschooling, you're choosing that environment to be home with just your siblings. I think there is kind of a natural progression, though, to being ready for the social environment of school, and the setting, the stricter, more rigid setting of school. I think there's a time for it, and I think there's benefit to having structure and things like that, and knowing where to go when. And I think some people thrive in that, and others don't. I think it's just recognizing the difference. I had to pull my youngest son, back home. We put him into daycare, and he was biting in daycare. And we had to pull him back home because he was just biting. And I knew, not that he's a bad kid, and no one was trying to say that, thankfully. But it did feel I felt bad, right? Because the other moms were, having kids with little bite marks on them. And this is not unusual. Kids bite, kids hit. They're aggressive when they feel threatened, or they're put in an environment that's uncomfortable for them and they don't know how to be because they haven't been shown or modeled that behavior to just be in here, and we're sharing toys now with 30 other people. Like, what is this? Who taught me how to be in this position? And the truth is, we haven't. We're just expecting them to figure it out. And that's all well and good for some people, and then it's not for others. So I took him home because I knew for him, it was just a maturity thing. He just had to mature a little bit, have a little bit more home time, be with mommy a little bit longer. And then when he was ready, 3 years old, we tried again. Things were good. And he was like, I want to be here. I want to be in school. And so that was a natural thing that he wanted to do. And he had a great time. And his classes were small when he was in daycare. So his classes were, I think, 6 to 1. So 6 students. It got really small. Yeah, 6 to 1. I think the largest in any one classroom with one instructor, if it was more than 12 kids, there were two instructors, and they always made sure that, it was a Montessori school. So, yeah, I just think then you see that they're ready, right? Because we had more of the learning to self-soothe. We had more time to bond and play at home. We had more time to learn about who we are, and uh, the idea of taking turns with toys. And we weren't just kind of forcing the kids because we had to get back to work. I think that is ideal. And that's not everybody's situation, where you can choose, like, oh, well, I don't want to go back to work because I don't want the kids to be forced into that school system yet. Maybe in second, third, fourth, fifth grade, high school, even, maybe they'll choose to want to go back to school. Like, I want that environment for myself. And then that is when you give them the choice. I think they might be ready for that because they have enough self-confidence. I honestly think that what I'm seeing, at least, and what I'm even reading, so it's not just me observing, but also like what I'm seeing, homeschool kids are very confident in their skin. And it's a beautiful sight to see. They're probably, maybe some might say overconfident, just really like, you know, sure of themselves. And I think, well, okay, well, what's a world like that like? And what do you go on to be when you're so sure of yourself and you are able to pursue what interests you, and you have the space to not just do activity for activity's sake, not just, have this rote memorization um or confuse poor behavior, or confuse like your natural intelligence, like something that you're just an intelligent person, and you're so bored in class waiting for maybe everybody else to catch up or keep the pace, that it results in poor behavior. It results in you being aggressive and hitting. I mean, that is an actual thing, where people are so smart they can't, you know behave in an environment, behave, properly, as society would deem it, in these settings, with all these people kind of keeping them below where they want to go. Some kids in homeschool can read beyond a first grade level, but think about the time that you're in first grade, and you're not really, the teacher's not going to move them, the whole class, past a certain level. They're going to stay within the standards of first grade. By the end of first grade, you can this, you can that, you can this, and you can that. We want to make sure you know all those things, and you test to prove it. And then you move on to second grade, and then you do all the second grade standards, and you make sure by the end of second grade you can do, and you test and prove it. And not that, so California in particular is holding kids back, as I understand it. They don't. You're still, that's a long time to stay at a grade level of reading, if you are able to surpass it, if you are able to read chapter books before it's time, before it's deemed time. And so imagine you can go at your pace. I just think I think that's one of my favorite parts about homeschooling. Not only that I get to have a better relationship with my kids because I'm not so burned out. I actually think if you're an entrepreneur mom, you can make homeschooling work. And because there's a way to make homeschooling work when you're an entrepreneur mom and you've got a busy entrepreneur schedule, and homeschooling does take a lot. You can do both. And but it does require some, reprioritizing. And I just think for me, like, what I love about homeschooling is that I am creating a better bond with my boys. I am getting to know them better. I am seeing what lights them up. I'm giving them enough space to discover it themselves. They get plenty of outdoor time. They are happy-go-lucky, just full of life kids. And I know that nobody at school is taking that away from them. Not to say that, you know, was happening this young, but I saw some light taken from my son going to school. And I know it was a lot of pressure for him to, do what the teachers say, what the faculty staff. He didn't want to be sent to the principal's office. Um, but, and I think if we continued down that path, both he and I would start to feel like he was being the bad kid, that he was kind of being seen as the bad kid. I think they had enough social and emotional intelligence at that school that they did not label him that, and they would not. But I think the peers, I think that's where you kind of get the label more so, is when you've got like one kid in class, maybe who's the dominant kid in class, saying something about someone else, and then everybody else kind of follows suit. And then you've got the whole class of 20 to 30 kids thinking the same thing about you. And that could feel ostracizing versus, just kind of not being in an environment like that, not being in an environment where what someone says about you goes. But I do want to read this quote again, because let's think about this. So, what good comes from our children being so socialized that their preferences and ambitions become indistinguishable? So that's by Ainsley Armett, and she is the author of Wild and Free. And it shows that what we think is socialization might be confused with just going with the herd. Oh, thank you for saying that. Nice to see you again. So this comment is, you can really impact his path and outcome much better by homeschooling. And I appreciate that. Thank you. I think I'm getting a lot of people confirming my decision more so than I thought would. And I'm not seeking validation, but I'm getting it because I think people recognize that there's a time and a place for things. And if you as their parent see, okay, he probably isn't thriving in this environment. Let me take him home. Let me see what we can do differently for him, what he needs, and let's be really present to how he wants to go about his life in this world. Then it's much more suitable for him, and it's better, right, in the long run, that he has that ability to come home. And I'm blessed that I get to provide him the ability to be home and be homeschooled, and we're just really figuring out our way. I definitely like the balance of everything, right? I like the balance of meals. I like the balance in my silence and the time that there's noise in the house, right? I like my balance of, we do nothing, we're just going to look through books, and if just look at the pictures and scroll whatever you words you can make out, learn, start to read those words. And then mommy's going to be reading too, and it's quiet time, and good sleep, right? We're leaving enough hours for rest and resting our minds and our bodies, and actual sleep. I like a balance of play and work. I like a balance of playing with each other and then playing on your own or playing with other people, not necessarily just your siblings. So we do the park, and we were just playing today at the park, and we just met some friends at the park, and they were playing together, and they were also homeschooling family. And it literally is that simple. And that the kids were playing, and then us moms were talking. And it's just like, just so natural, so easy, so go with the best flow ever. And then, we come back lunch, and it's just like, I've got a lot of help with my mom. I think them having their grandma is a big deal for them. They love it, and they are getting, you know, to bond with her, and then I'm getting a lot of help from her. So it's a win-win. We're definitely loving the dynamic that we've got going, and I think it's necessary that you have. I think grandparents really come in; they're a big factor for a family choosing to homeschool, because I know I'm not the only household where the grandma and grandpa are involved, and they're helping with meals or shuttling to and from, or they're just involved in babysitting, right? When the parents have to go work and things like that. So that's absolutely the case. So you do, want to create and curate your village when you are homeschooling. And I would say that's a big help. And that's what's made it possible, for sure, honestly, truly. Honestly, for me to be able to balance is that I do have help. I do not think I don't think, if I was working, if I was not working, I could see for sure homeschooling, because that would be my job. I would be homeschooling my kids, but I'm also an entrepreneur. I have my own business, and so I am. And actually, since not since homeschooling, but I would say since in the last 12 months, when I was entertaining this idea of homeschooling, or not entertaining it. I think I was entertaining it more so this year, but late last year, when he was starting, we were already kind of seeing the writing on the wall, him not loving school, him not thriving there, and me knowing, okay, we got to figure something out. Before we pulled him out, I kind of was already seeing the signs, already adjusting. I had my biggest year, or my biggest 12 months, rolling 12 months in my business. And that's a big deal. So I I think, it can be done. It's not impossible, and it's just, it's important that we know that it is possible. Just know that it is possible. The ability to stay with extended family is so underrated. Children really need multiple generations and relatives, if not for anything else, but to see that mom and dad aren't crazy. Oh my gosh, that is so true. That is so true because they are seeing some things that I either have to my dad has passed, so they got they got time with him, but I know they're going to live most of their life not knowing their grandpa or their other grandpa because they both passed away. When they were young and before my youngest son was born, he just had one grandpa. Or let me say this correctly. My we had we had my first son and he had both grandpas. 6 months into his life, we lost their dad's dad. And then just last year we lost my dad. So they just have their grandmas on both sides and both great grandmas. But it is really cool that, will my grandma will or my mom will say something and I kind of like have to sometimes be like, "Oh, we don't say that word." Or I'll have to like pull them aside and say, "I know grandma says that, but we don't say that." Um and it's just like, at first it was stressful. I was like, "Oh, we're entering this environment that the kids are going to be exposed to things that, you know, just the ways of my mom and loving. She's so amazing, so great, so generous." And but it also we're probably different types of moms, both completely passionate about our kids, both completely like bend over backwards for our kids. But in some of the things, she wouldn't homeschool, right? She's not a homeschool mom. And so she's like learning this whole life of like, okay, this is homeschooling. But just kind of observing it, but she would not be a homeschool mom. So we're just different in that regard, right? Right there, case in point. But different in other ways too. And so it's just like, okay, I just let it be. And but if they start saying something, maybe they heard grandma say, then if I'm not okay with it, I'm gonna talk to them about it. But I'm seeing the benefit of like, oh no, grandma says that, and I'm seeing this is part of who I am, and maybe that resonates with me. But then we're gonna find the place. We're gonna find where if it's appropriate or not appropriate for you, a 5 years old to say that or do that, or in and so it just opens up opportunities to, for more lessons and definitely them to learn about themselves, them to have a bond with their extended family, like you said, and their cousins, even seeing their cousins and their aunties, uncles, like how they are is product of a different upbringing, right? So you're coming in contact with your cousins, your blood, and you still are different kids, right? Because that's a different sibling who raised that kid. And we're all just different, right? We're all different, and even our iterations are different, and even our interpretations of what is, how we parent, right? It's all really subjective. Hey, Jenny. Um, Yeah, I know. Wasn't that cool? Yeah, we just ran into each other and I asked, I was like, okay, your kids are my kids, same age. And so we just started chatting and um she yeah, they're the same age. Our kids are the same age. And so I was like, okay, they would be in school right now if they weren't homeschooled. And she's like, yeah, we do homeschool. And then it's kind of also we're gonna keep meeting up. And so we exchange numbers because they're going to the same learning center that the boys are gonna go next year. But anyway, I did say that I was gonna oh my gosh, you said it. Let me share your comment in a second. But yeah, so what was I saying? Um oh yeah, so I am still considering probably for sure. I'm gonna let my son, my youngest, go to TK in the school setting. He does well. He's fine in school. He likes school, that type of school. And I think I'm gonna get myself even better at this whole game of life that I'm in right now with homeschooling, and I'll be better prepared to bring him back. I think my oldest needs a lot of my attention right now, and I wanna give it to him, and, I wanna find kind of that our settling point there, and then my youngest is just so good about just kinda coming into into the fold. We're just because yeah, he's just a go with the flow guy. He's definitely like his mommy. We adapt, we adjust, and if we're enjoying life, we're here for it. We could do this. So that was really cool. But as soon as I can, I'm gonna want him back. But so yes, and much better than being raised by sitcoms and social media. I know, because I feel like that was like 80s and 90s was just like sitcoms and not yet social media so much, but chat rooms and then social media. But yeah, I mean, social media did start in the 90s, right? But like the mainstays, when was Facebook? When did Facebook come out? MySpace was early 2000s, but was it in the 90s? I don't know. I don't know when MySpace started, but that's like the first one that kind of just went viral, was huge, like TikTok. And then, you know, Facebook just totally wiped them out. So, Facebook 2004. Okay. Okay. Am I, so I don't know your handle. What is your name? Can you tell me your name? Because people on both Instagram and YouTube are their names. So, by the way, so Jenny's on YouTube over here, and she's a Life with Gen X Values. She does her live streams on Mondays, 6 p.m. Pacific, or no, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. her time. And so 3 p.m. Pacific for me. And she's got such a great live audience, and it's just so cool to be on her lives, just the way they chat. And so I just appreciate that influence on me, because I'm like, you know what, I want to engage more with the people who comment live, and pull away from my notes a little bit more, even though I do want to get some points across, because I do feel like when people are asking me questions, I want to give a thorough answer. I want to kind of go through all the possibilities. So it does take time. Notice how I'm still on that first question. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, yes. Okay, I remember. Hi, Sean. So are you in Brazil still? Gosh, I'm trying to place in Sao Paulo. I do remember, because I know I was staying in a house. But I did move around a couple. I moved around twice, I think, in Sao Paulo. So I think I do. I feel like I just saw a picture of my time in Sao Paulo, and I saw that I did go to a friend's house, or I went with a friend. Oh man, ugh, years ago, years ago. But it's kind of coming back. I love that you are chatting with me. Thank you. But anyway, like I was saying, I definitely want to keep chatting with the comments, and make sure I also still answer these questions, because I didn't even get to that second one. I got to the first question, which was, how are you liking homeschooling? I think I want to do like a little expose on homeschooling versus traditional school. Not that they're pitted against each other, but just my takes on the two. I think I'll have to do my take on that. Oh, okay. Okay. I feel like it's totally coming back. I love that. And so you're in Atlanta now. I miss Brazil so much. I love Brazil. Oh, I feel like I must have been a Brazilian in another life. I was so at home there. I would have stayed forever. If I could just like get around some of the, I know there was like political strife a lot at the time I was there. And then I know it was hard for like an American to do anything without Brazilian citizenship. So that kind of freaked me out too. And then the whole visa thing, that was a problem too. Like not overstaying my visa, that was a big issue. But love that you're here. Stay in touch. DM me. But then I didn't even get to Jessica's question, because I did want to kind of circle back to the question that Jessica asked a couple weeks ago, like, how are you balancing work and homeschooling? I did kind of touch on that. But I am here to tell you that it is possible. And next week, I am going to go into, so next week, I'm actually answering a question that I think will help touch on this a lot. Why do entrepreneur moms feel so overwhelmed? And I know the feeling. I absolutely know the feeling firsthand. It feels overwhelming, especially to take on more when you're already kind of moving and grooving in your business, to take on more with your kids. That's unexpected because nothing is predictable about parenthood. Um, I just feel like, oh man, that's how do you balance all that? And there is a way. So I want to get into the actual simple systems that I use as a mom. We're gonna go into that a little bit next week. And then if you are I am going to take live questions on that. We're going to take them live. We're going to be streaming still, especially on YouTube and Instagram. We'll still be streaming, but we're also going to be in the Zoom room. So if you have questions, I'm probably going to take them primarily in the Zoom room. So I'm going to put a link below so that you can register for that call so that you can answer or you can ask me the questions and I can get to those real time. When it comes to, why do entrepreneur moms feel so overwhelmed and really what to do to eliminate that so that you do feel the balance of both things that are really that you're passionate about, that are priorities, right? Parenting and your business, they're both your babies, right? You want them both to thrive, and you want to thrive while doing it, right? You want to thrive while running a business. You want to thrive while running a household, parenting these kids, being present, patient with them, having them just like morph into these beautiful butterflies of people and like, whoa, okay, I was a part of letting that happen. Imagine if I wasn't there, what could have happened, right? You could kind of see the writing on the wall that if you weren't as present and patient as you want to be, what could kind of befall this generation of kids, right? Um I personally see where things could go wrong and where I could um, have steered my son into a totally different direction if I wasn't present and aware of what was happening. And I think I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a will see situation. I don't know. But what my gut says, what my maternal instinct says, is what I go by. And what I feel right now is that he's come alive, he's thriving, he's learning more about himself, and not in any stigmatic kind of way, not in with any shame. He's learning his how he learns. He's learning to fight through some of the urges and the impulses that might um, you know, cause trouble for him. And we're working through that. And I think I have more time to do it, and I want more time to do it, especially right now while he's still young. And so if you feel that way and you don't just, want to put your kids in front of sitcoms and social media, you don't want to just sit your kids in front of a screen all day so that you can work. You actually want to have time carved out to engage and be with them and have a family, right? Form this bond with your kids and this relationship that is impenetrable and stands the test of time starts right now. If you recognize that, the preciousness of this time, and you also still recognize the preciousness of this time in your business, and you know that you want to up level there, you want to scale. Maybe you haven't started your business and you want to start on the right foot for you and your family. You want to do it in a way that really goes with your flow, and it doesn't run you, you run it. And it also doesn't run you into the ground, right? Because you are absolutely, you're who calls the shots, right? As CEO and founder. That's what we're going to be talking about next week. And it is possible. You can do it. And I will show you. We're going to dive into the systems, and really some of the mindset shifts that have to happen in order to make it happen. That's a big one. The mindset shifts that have to happen in order to make it happen is a big part of this. As you know, coming from a mindset coach, this is absolutely like the foundation that we want in place before we start to adopt these new habits and these new ideas about how to go about our parenting and our business. So anyway, I will end our live stream. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for chatting with me. Thanks everyone. And I will see you next week. I will also include in the link how to register for the call so that you can get in the Zoom room so that we can actually have like a live dialogue. I'm going to prioritize the Zoom room just for next week with those questions. And there's actually an exclusive part for just the Zoom room. So when I end the live call on Instagram and YouTube, we're still going to be getting to chat in the Zoom room. So there, it is an exclusive event. So you will want to register. Anyway, so that's next week. I'll put the links below. And if you want to submit a question for next Clarity Hotline, clarityhotline.com. And I will see you next week. Thursday, every Thursday, 12 noon Pacific. Peace. Thanks for coming on. All right, YouTube. See you next week. I'll put all the links right here and I'll see you next time.